the Diocese of Anchorage-Juneau, Alaska. The story of the faith in this region began with courageous missionaries, grew under the care of selfless bishops, and carries on today under the leadership of Archbishop Andrew E. Bellisario.
I think I enjoy most being able to celebrate the sacraments with people, being with the people, and the goodness that they are. I'm enjoying coming to understand this role that I've been asked to do, been called to do.
This is the story of the bishops of America, the shepherds of the past and the shepherds of today, who through their callings and ministry carry the church into the future. It's also the story of their parish, their church, the cathedral. This is The Chair, an exploration of what it means to be an apostle in America. In south-central Alaska, on a strip of coastal lowland, up the lower alpine slopes of the Chugach Mountains, is the city of Anchorage. Further south, located in the Gastineau Channel and the Alaskan Panhandle, just 13 miles from the Mendenhall Glacier, is the city of Juneau. Both make up the sea cities of the Diocese of Anchorage-Juneau.
The name Alaska is the name given to this land by the Aleutians who inhabited the Aleutian Islands, and it translates as the Great Land. And really, it's a wonderfully perfect translation, because when you see Alaska, there's this majestic beauty to it with all the lakes and the fjords and the mountains and the rivers.
Alaska is 3 times the size of California. San Francisco is 7 miles by 7 miles. That has 850,000 people living in that, okay? Alaska has about 700,000 people living in the entire state. That's about 3 times the size of California.
Indigenous tribes inhabited Alaska for thousands of years before George Vancouver, a British naval officer, became the first European to set eyes on this land during his famed exploration of the northwestern Pacific coast between 1791 to 1795.
In terms of ecclesiastical jurisdiction, Alaska remained a no man's land until 1847, when Modeste Demers was consecrated as the first bishop of Vancouver Island in Canada. And at that point, he's then given jurisdiction over the island of that name and all of the British and Russian possessions as far north as the Glacial Sea. So that would have included Alaska.
And it wasn't until the 1880s that the first missionary priests really began work in the Panhandle region. Missionary activities gained greater stability in the 1880s with the arrival of the Jesuits, who had a long tradition of working in missionary territories with native peoples.
In 1916, Alaska was elevated by the Holy See to an apostolic vicariate, and the French Jesuit bishop, Joseph Raphael Jean Cremont, was named the first vicar apostolic. Now, Bishop Cremont had a deep devotion to St. Teresa of the Little Flower. He personally knew members of her family, and when St. Teresa was canonized on May 17, 1925, Bishop Cremont was present in Rome. Soon after, he declared St. Teresa the Queen and Protectress of Alaska.
When she was canonized in 1925, the bishop here was French, and I think he had quite a devotion to her. Also, of course, she's one of the patrons of the missions, and Alaska is mission territory. She is the patroness of this diocese, and then she's the patroness of all of Alaska.
The National Shrine of St. Therese is one of the gems of the Archdiocese of Anchorage-Juneau. It begins as a dream of 2 Jesuits, Father William Levasseur and Bishop Cremont, in the 1930s. Father Levasseur had expressed his interest in creating some sort of a retreat center in honor of St. Therese. And the bishop was just thrilled with the idea, so he purchases 46 acres of this beautiful land overlooking what's called the Lynn Canal. Thousands of stones were gathered to construct the chapel, and all of these stones were gathered by volunteers. The first Mass is held there in 1941. So the shrine, in addition to a chapel made of these beach stones, also features stone sculptures of the Stations of the Cross. There's a walking path known as the Good Shepherd Rosary Trail, and the end of this trail ends at a replica of Michelangelo's Pietà.
The first diocese didn't come until 1951. First there was a prefecture, and then after that there was the vicariate, and it wasn't until 51 that they started chopping it up. So Juneau was kind of the base for the bishops, and it's kind of the gateway to the rest of Alaska at that time.
When the Diocese of Juneau was established in 1951, the number of Catholics throughout the entire diocese was smaller than the population of some urban parishes in places like New York City or Boston. The first bishop of the Diocese of Juneau, Dermot O'Flanagan, was a native of County Clare in Ireland. He originally trained with the Jesuits, but decided to leave the religious order, though he remained a priest. While at the 1932 Eucharistic Congress, O'Flanagan had a transformative experience when he met a Father O'Reilly, who was a veteran of the Alaska mission. And O'Flanagan was captivated by the stories that he heard of the work of the missionaries in Alaska and the beauty of the landscape that was described to him. And he decided to go and enter that same missionary field. He arrived in Juneau in 1933 and worked in several parishes throughout the region. He had a reputation for being a humble, down-to-earth pastor. He visited the sick in the local hospitals, and he was also known for taking tasks upon himself, including shoveling the snow and the parish sidewalk and tending to the rectory furnace. He was a beloved figure among the local Catholic population.
Bishop O'Flanagan also invited the Sisters of Providence to establish a hospital in Anchorage, extending their healthcare network from the Pacific Northwest into the state of Alaska. And the Sisters of Providence to this day, and the Providence Healthcare Network that they established, remains a vital source of healthcare for many communities throughout the state of Alaska. And so it really speaks to the commitment of Catholic healthcare and for non-for-profit healthcare in the United States, where the Catholic Church has really been a pioneer, even to the farthest regions of this country. As the city of Anchorage rose in prominence and became the center of commerce and population for the region, the Holy See decided to split off the region into its own diocese. On the 22nd of January, 1966, Pope Paul VI erected the Archdiocese of Anchorage, with Joseph T. Ryan as its first archbishop. The Church of the Holy Family served as the cathedral church. Archbishop Ryan was a dedicated shepherd who served the people of Anchorage for 9 years before becoming the first archbishop for military services.
The longest-serving bishop of the Archdiocese of Anchorage was Francis T. Hurley, and during his time as shepherd, Hurley expanded Catholic ministry in the remote communities of the diocese and helped implement the reforms of the Second Vatican Council. In March of 2000, Roger L. Schweitz, OMI, was installed as the coadjutor of the Archdiocese of Anchorage and succeeded Archbishop Hurley, who officially retired in February of 2001.
As the region continued to grow, Holy Family soon became too small. So the diocese petitioned the Holy See in 2013 to have Our Lady of Guadalupe be named as the co-cathedral.
In December of 2014, the new co-cathedral was officially dedicated on the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe. The year of 2015 was celebrated as the Year of Blessing in the Archdiocese of Anchorage. In November of 2016, Pope Francis named Paul Etienne as the new Archbishop of Anchorage. Archbishop Etienne's tenure was limited when he was appointed the Archbishop of Seattle in September of 2019. On May 19, 2020, Pope Francis announced the reunification of the Archdiocese of Anchorage and the Diocese of Juneau into the new Archdiocese of Anchorage-Juneau. Canonically, this meant the suppression of both the Diocese of Juneau and the Archdiocese of Anchorage, and the creation of a new metropolitan archdiocese with their combined territory.
As part of this decision to reunify the diocese, it was also decided to have two cathedrals. The Cathedral of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Anchorage would become the primary cathedral, and the Cathedral of the Nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary in Juneau would be the co-cathedral.
Our Lady of Guadalupe Parish Church was built in 2005. It was elevated to cathedral status in 2014. It's built in a contemporary mission revival style. So it's a contemporary building, but it looks to the west, the Franciscan missions, as well as to Latin America. Our Lady of Guadalupe is the patroness of the Americas. The rose window upon approach is a really contemporary take on the concept of the rose. The rose window always is an allusion to Our Lady, but in particular, this references the miracle of the roses when San Juan Diego brought the news of his vision of Our Lady of Guadalupe to his bishop, the bishop who requested proof. And when Our Lady told San Juan Diego to fill his tilma with roses appearing in the desert in December, which is an uncharacteristic time for them to grow, and bring them to the bishop. And when he brings them, he opens his tilma, and not only are the roses there, but also the image of Our Lady. So the rose really reminds us not only of Our Lady and her patronage, but also of this miracle and how she brings us to her Son.
The co-cathedral of Our Lady of the Nativity in Juneau dates all the way back to 1886, when it was constructed as a mission church. The current building was constructed in 1910.
Well, this church has been here for better than 120 years. When Sistership St. Anne came here, this was just dirt. They were the ones who wanted to get a school, the hospital, and a church. It was not built as a cathedral, it was built as a parish church. The parish is deeply loved by the people, more than just Catholics. It's always been a beacon for the whole city. Whenever a big tragedy struck, they came here. 9/11, people came here. When they had the earthquake in Anchorage, people came here. So it is a place where people feel comfortable to come, no matter what denomination they are. Deacon Charles Warbacher designed those stained glass windows in the 90s. The stained glass windows are the miracles of Jesus in the New Testament. And he focused a lot with regards to women, the woman at the well, and so on. On the days of old, in Europe, cathedrals had artists in residence. We have an artist in residence here, Deacon Warbacher, and so we're really blessed to have him.
The heart of the cathedral is the bishop's chair, or cathedra. The cathedra inside Our Lady of Guadalupe in Anchorage and Nativity in Juneau symbolize Bishop Bellisario's role as the Apostle of Anchorage-Juneau. Born and raised in the Los Angeles area, Bishop Bellisario graduated from St. Vincent Seminary High School and entered the Congregation of the Mission in 1975 to study for the priesthood.
Oh, I first wanted to be a priest from my earliest memories. My parents tell me, they're both deceased now, they're with God. They tell me that really when I was very, very young, I talked about it even before I could remember. So it was something that was very present to me from a very early age. And then when I became an altar boy, I think just walking into the church, I could feel the presence of God in a way that was calling out to me. And so I got to be the head of the altar servers. And actually in my 8th grade, I went to a Catholic school, St. Stephen's School in Monterey Park, California. We had that year a little paper yearbook. And in that yearbook, we had our pictures, and they'd put a little title under your name. And so under mine, they put Monsignor Bellisario. When I was in 7th and 8th grade, I started looking for high school seminaries, which we had at that time. And as you know, we don't have too many, if any, left in the United States. There may be 1 or 2. But then in the back of my classroom, there was a little sheet of paper that I tore off this poster, and it said, thinking about becoming a Vincentian priest. And then there was a Vincentian minor seminary 8 miles from my house, which the other one was 30 some odd miles away. So I said, oh, I'll go to this one. So I went in there in 1970, went to one of their groups, and our initials after our name are C&M, meaning Congregation of the Mission. And so I came home from that. I was in the end of my 7th grade year, and I put CM after all my name everywhere. And I went into the minor seminary there, and I've never looked back since. It's always been a tremendous blessing for me to be a member of the Congregation of the Mission. Here in the United States, we're called Vincentians because we were founded by St. Vincent de Paul. And the other name is the Lazarus, which were known in France and other places. And the reason for those two names is St. Vincent de Paul founded the Congregation of the Mission in 1625 for the purpose of evangelizing the poor country folk of France. He was given a very large priory called Saint-Lazare at one point in his lifetime, of which the Vincentians, the Congregation of the Mission, did their work from. And so consequently, that's why oftentimes they're called the Lazarus, because of the connection to Saint-Lazare.
Bishop Bellisario was ordained a Vincentian priest on June 16, 1984.
My ordination day was in St. Vincent's Church in Los Angeles, which is arguably one of the most beautiful churches in all Los Angeles. But it was a wonderful day, family and friends, and just being ordained in Southern California was really special. The first 2 years I went back to the minor seminary as a dean of students, and then after 2 years, the seminary that I actually went to had closed, and we closed it. So I became an associate at Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal Church in Montebello, California for 3 years, became an administrator for 1 year after that of the same church, and then went over to St. Vincent de Paul Church in Huntington Beach, California, where I was pastor, my first pastorate. And I was there 5 years. And then I wound up in the Central Valley of California in a very small town, about 5,000 people, Patterson, California. I went to become the treasurer of my province in Montebello, California. And then I was elected the provincial of my province for 8 years. Then I worked with the Daughters of Charity, my sister community, from 2003 to 2015 as their director. When I finished with that, I was up for an assignment. I was finally going to get a sabbatical. And then I got a call from our Superior General in Rome saying that they had just started a mission up in Alaska, of which I knew about because the sisters were already there and I'd visited a couple times. So I was asked to go up there to be the superior of our mission in Alaska that was just starting for outreach to Spanish-speaking people of Alaska. I learned a lot because we're missionaries. Vincentians are missionaries. Being in California, we had a lot of poor places we were at, but it's large. There's 35 million people living in California. You know, it's a country unto itself in many respects. So coming to Anchorage, I felt for the first time like I was a missionary that was far away. So I embraced that, but it was difficult in the beginning, as I'm sure every missionary that's ever experienced that. And probably years ago, when people became missionaries and they went the other side of the world, never to go back to their home. So it wasn't anywhere near as challenging as that, of course. It really did call for an adjustment and an embracing of that missionary identity. Everywhere in Alaska, and you'll find out, I'd say the same thing here in Southeast Alaska, the people are just marvelous. So I enjoyed my 2 years there, and the final year I was there, the 1 year, I was the pastor of the co-cathedral there in Anchorage, Our Lady of Guadalupe.
On July 11, 2017, Pope Francis chose Andrew Bellisario to be the next bishop of the Diocese of Juneau.
I was driving at the time going into the parking lot, and the nuncio called me, and he told me to pull over, which was a good idea. And he just informed me that Holy Father had appointed me the Bishop of Juneau. Of course, you have to accept that, which I did, because in my own history, every place I've ever been stationed or asked to do, I've never said no, and I've always been happy. And I think certainly within our spirituality as Catholics, you know, with Blessed Mother saying yes, you know, to what she had been asked, not knowing fully or maybe not at all what, you know, the circumstances were and the outcome would be, that's part of who we are too. I was happy to come here and yet sad at the same time because being a member of the Vincentian Fathers, I'm kind of out of that to do this. And so I try to bring the charism of St. Vincent, which is evangelization of the poor and the service of the poor. I try to bring that to my diocese here. Again, I follow St. Vincent's way of spreading the faith is not by looking for somebody to believe before you assist them or help them, but rather, we're there to assist people in their needs to the best that we can, and that people experience Jesus hopefully through our actions and through the work of our hands, just the way we experience Jesus and the people that we minister to, because Jesus is everywhere.
On May 18, 2020, Pope Francis named Bishop Bellisario the Archbishop of the newly created Archdiocese of Anchorage-Juneau.
That's really something that can be very overwhelming. I don't consider myself at all to be worthy or to have this position as being worthy, but of course I know, and hopefully most people know, it's not about being worthy, it's about being called. God gives us, we really believe, by the grace of the sacrament and by our own talents and gifts that God has given to us, that we're able to fulfill the responsibilities that we have. The bishop is the chief shepherd, and everything that I did as a priest was an extension of the bishop, because the bishop is the one who is charged to take care of the sheep, but he can't possibly do that on his own. And so to have the priests do that for him, and I've always seen the chair that I had in my parishes, I always felt was an extension of the cathedral. I think I enjoy most being able to celebrate the sacraments with people, being with the people, and the goodness that they are. I've been a lot of places, mostly in California, but a lot of parishes, different good people. But there's something really quite unique about Alaskans. I really enjoy being with them, and I'm enjoying coming to understand this role that I've been asked to do, been called to do.